Hey guys, it's Umber again, and I'm back with another video with an NBA prediction. But today we're going to do something different. Today we're going to use ChatGPT to actually drive us and do some Python work to drive us with a simulation towards an over and under score total bet. This is a free pick prediction, so it's obviously not 100% guaranteed, but I think that it's coming up with some solid consensus so that we can make some profits today. And today's match, which this pick will be generated from on ChatGPT, will be between the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. Game one tonight at 8 p.m. taking place in Boston. So let's get straight to the video. So let me give a little bit of some details about how we're going to go through this. So I have a subscription to the paid version of ChatGPT, which is GPT 4040, the most recent version, which they actually just dropped, I think like a week ago. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some ESPN data. We're going to drop that data from both teams, the Celtics and the Pacers, and drop that data onto GPT 40 and tell it to run some Python simulations. And I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you guys can take a look exactly at what I'm doing. And you guys can actually try to replicate this on your own on ChatGPT, on your own accounts using my prompts, and then get some feedback. And we're going to track this, and I'll do a follow-up video tomorrow after the bet is finished, and I'll do some reviewing and some consensus and some feedback, win or lose, so that we can show and see where it went wrong or if it went right, and how we can use this to make some profits. So let me share my screen right now, and let's change this straight to my Chat GPT interface. So here we are, we're on ChatGPT, and actually I'll show you guys that I was looking at the Boston Celtics postseason stats and for all player stats and all categories over here. And I took all this data, and as well in this tab right here, I have the same data for the Indiana Pacers. And so we can see here that Jason Tatum is leading the points at 24.3 points. And he's also leading the rebounds category and the assists category, with Kristaps Porzingis leading in steals and blocks. So these are just a few of the breakdowns for those categories. And we can see every single player on the Celtics and some of their statistics here, like minutes, points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, turnovers. And then I took that data and I copied it directly into ChatGPT. So you just highlight, select, copy, paste. And at first, GPT just organizes these player for performance stats, and it's able to know that this is the Celtics. It's organizing it into a table. And yeah, obviously that doesn't bring us too much output because we have that same data right here. But I gave it the same data from the Pacers. It did the same thing, organized that into a table. And now here's where we start getting into some deeper in analysis. And I'll show you guys that actually at first GPT will not give you the output that you want from it. So you need to tweak it and you need to ask it multiple questions to finally get to that output. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I said over here, using these two data sets and as much data from the internet to predict the outcome of game one, knowing that Las Vegas has Boston Celtics favored at minus 450 odds. So it gives us just an analysis. It doesn't actually use that ESPN data, which I fed it, and that's what I was intending for it to do, was use that data. But it searches 5 websites over here, as we can see, and it gives us a whole prediction analysis. It says the Boston Celtics are favored against the Indiana Pacers with money line. The spread set at minus 7.5, and the over-under is set at 249.5. But that's actually wrong because I checked on a different bookie and it was actually set at 222 points as of right now. So it's already giving us some hallucination right there. And then it gives us this team performance and statistics. It gives us some records, some key players, recent form and stats for both teams. And then it says this is how much these players are projected to have, but it's just pulling this from the internet. So this is some information we could have just gotten ourselves from the internet, and they're telling us all this, which you can read. I don't need to read all this to you. But overall, it's saying that the Celtics' depth, defense, and home court advantage make them the clear favorites. But now let's try to dig deeper and actually get some real analysis, which we won't find on the internet. That'll give us a little bit of an edge or an advantage over Vegas on these over-under lines. So we already know that it's telling us that Celtics will probably win as the money line, and that is who I would pick as well for this money line. If you guys are interested in betting on that money line pick for this game, I would definitely recommend that you take the Boston Celtics to make some profits tonight and don't lose your money by betting on the Indiana Pacers. So in the next step, I told it, did you also run some data analysis on the key player stats that I gave you just now for both teams, the Celtics and the Pacers? Because this data over here, which it has in this table, I wanted it to use this data to actually drive some simulation and get us a forecasted points per these players and use all these stats to forecast some points so that we can get an over and under accurate prediction. So it does some analyzation. You can see here that it's using a pandas Python package module, and it's driving, we can see the code which has the data from the ESPN right here that I just gave it. It's feeding this in and it gives us some output. But the problem is this output is just organizing that data, which I gave it. It's not really still driving us any analytics. It's just giving us a summary, as we can see, like the counts, the means, the standard deviations, the minimums, and then it's bracketing that out. So the problem is that we want to have something deeper than this. It's giving us a few insights, which is cool. And again, it's just telling us the predicted outcome that the Celtics' superior defensive statistics and the home court advantage shows that they're likely to control the game's pace, and recent form that Boston will cover the spread and win the game. But given the analysis and statistical summaries, final prediction leads towards the Boston Celtics victory, likely covering the spread too. So they think that the Celtics will win the spread and the money line. But now I said, okay, why don't we do something even deeper and let's get the projected player points for both teams using this given data analysis. So projected player points means it's very simple, exactly how it sounds, that we'll do some Python analysis, use the average points per game postseason stats data from ESPN, run some analysis in Python, and then get us a forecasted projection for this specific matchup for these players against the Pacers and for the Pacers against the Celtics. So we're projecting using Python. We want GPT to give us this code to show us how many points they are projected using statistics. And so it does that here. It gives us a basic model at first. It's bracketing out the Celtics players and their average points and the Pacers' average points. Then we're using pandas to create data frames for manipulation. And then we're displaying that data to the user. And so the problem is now it's made one step towards what we wanted it to do, because it's definitely understood the goal that we're trying to get projected points. But the problem is, if you notice these numbers, 24.3, 23.1, 12.3, 18.2, and 10.4 are the same numbers over here. 24.3, 23.1, 18.2, 12.3, 10.4. So it's just giving us that same data. So it's thinking that a projection is just basically whatever the average is. So we don't want that, because that's, again, not bringing us anything useful. But now this is where we start getting into the useful side. So I said, you didn't run any data analysis. And when you guys are talking to ChatGPT, you need to talk to it like you're actually having a real conversation with a human. Like if you had somebody working at your company that was doing some code for you and you saw that, no, this is just BS. This isn't what I'm trying to get as the output. You need to tell GPT that, because ChatGPT is always learning from what feedback and inputs that you give to the system. So I said, you didn't run any data analysis, and you can run a simple logistic regression and run this simulation for me 200 times to determine the specific projected points in this upcoming game for these players, and use the most data and whatever data that you think is the most relevant to getting me an accurate forecast. So now it's doing some analysis again in Python. This time it's using a NumPy module, so I think that's already going to be more sophisticated. It's using a logistic regression from scikit-learn, and it's doing some analysis. And from the output, it says that we're getting a value error, and it appears that a logistic regression model is not appropriate for predicting the continuous values. So that makes sense, actually. I shouldn't have told it to use a logistic regression. We should probably be using, because this is just a points total, not like a money line total, I think a linear regression would be better, so we can simulate that and extrapolate that data to get some good values. So it was smart enough to just do that without asking me. So it says, let's use a linear regression model. So now he switches this to linear regression, fit the linear regression model, linear regression, XY coordinates, and simulate these as our test parameters. Simulate the game 200 times between the Celtics and the Pacers. And so it's giving us some code. And now in our output here, now we can see this is where it's starting to get valuable. So it's given us the Celtics simulated projected points for their top 5 point scorers, as well as this Pacers simulated projected points. And we can see that these numbers are now different: 23.47, 16.24, 11.84, 14.26, 16.53 for Drew Holiday. And if we go back here, Drew Holiday was predicted at 10.4. Well, not predicted. This is average points per games splits in the postseason statistics between 2024 NBA playoffs that he was projected, not projected, sorry, average 10.4 points per game. And we can see here that in this model, in this forecast specifically, maybe because the Pacers have a weaker defense and are allowing teams to score higher points against them, they're given that Drew Holiday's points will actually jump up to 16.53, which is significantly higher than 10.4. And now this is where it starts becoming useful. And it gives us that same information for the Pacers. We can see Tyrese Halliburton at 19.07, Siakam at 17.8, and so on. And so now we get down to the simulated projected player points in a more tabular format. It says that we've used a linear regression, simulated it 200 times for each player, and these points offer a forecast of each player's expected performance in the upcoming game, based on their recent statistics and contributions. So then I said, who will likely win game one after using this? And we will get to the over-under, because I told you that today we're focusing on the over-under, but I just wanted to test out who we would think would win game one just based on the points. So that is a money line pick. And it's saying to determine the likelihood of winner of game one, we're going to use team performance, key player contributions. But then in step 3, this is where we actually use this data, which it was working on with the simulated player projection points. And we can see here that it's saying Celtics key player points and Pacers key player points. And after that, it does an analysis to tell us that the Celtics have a strong home court advantage. Defensively, the Celtics are stronger, and the Celtics projected points from key players indicate balanced scoring from multiple players, which is better than the Pacers. So given the Celtics' strong defensive capabilities, home court advantage, balanced scoring, they are more likely to win game one against the Pacers, and the betting odds and spreads also reflect that, with the Celtics as the favorite in Vegas's mind. So if you guys are going to bet this money line, definitely take Boston Celtics to win game one. Now, let's get straight to the score total, because this is what the video is actually about. And this is what we're actually using this projected points to find value against Vegas. And this is where we found an extreme edge. So this pick, I'm giving you a higher confidence that this pick will win than the other pick. Well, the other pick will most likely also win as well, because the Celtics will most definitely win this first game. They're rested. They're scoring more points. They're the number one team in the NBA right now. And the Pacers are banged up and tired. So we'll see how it goes tonight. But I asked it, will the score be projected higher than 249 or less? And Python did some analyzation. It said that summing the projected points for both teams to predict the total score, we're going to use Celtics total points, Celtics projected points, Pacers projected points. We're going to use the total projected score to add these up. See, now the problem with that is we're getting such a low value of 162. So now we can definitely see that that's a hallucination. So I just told ChatGPT that this is a hallucination, because number one, 249 points, even assuming that GPT got that Vegas over underline right at 249, which it was actually wrong. I mean, 249 was too high for this total. It was set by Vegas at 222, so I don't know where I got that from. But how did it get, only 162 points? The problem is that it only used the top 5 players and summed up their values to get this projection. So it's not using every team player. There's more than 5 players on a team that's going to be playing on that NBA court. It's 8 to 9 usually. And so that's why I told it that it's a hallucination. Then it told me that to provide a more accurate projection for this total score, let's reevaluate the data carefully. So we'll consider a more detailed approach to calculating the projected points based on team and player performance averages. And in the updated approach, it said, let's calculate the average points per game for each team from the provided statistics, sum the projected points for key players to get a more realistic estimate, and then we'll get that. But now it's still getting me the same value. So now it's using the average points per game. So we don't want to use the average points per game. So it's actually not the same value, but it's using the average. So it's going back over here, and it's just taking, if we're going to the OPP and PPG, if we go over here to the home points per game total, where is it? Yeah, 120.6. I think it's using that number. well, it's using 120.2, so it's just rounded that down to get us a 245 value, but that's wrong because that's just something very simple. So I told it that your projection total is much lower than the Vegas line because you didn't include all the players who contribute to the score and only the top scorers. So that's when GPT goes back and it updates the projection for all players. So now we can see Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Tatum. But then after those five, it goes to Luke Cornett, Al Horford, Jalen Brown, Xavier Tillman, Jaden Springer, Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, and so on. So then it's adding up the summation for projecting for these players to get 120.3 points. And then we're going to the Pacers and we're getting Miles Turner, Isaiah Jackson, Aaron Nesmith, Halliburton, Siakam, Obi Toppin, Nembhard. And so it's taking these values for every player, summing these up, and getting us to 117.9 points for the Pacers and 123.9 points projected for the Celtics. And this is a simulation, remember, this might not be exactly what plays out, but this is definitely more realistic and more accurate than the other data analysis, the information that it was giving us, because it's getting us to 238.2 points. It's using a simulation model. It's running it 200 times, and it's summing the values to get us a score total for this game for both teams' combined score total to be at roughly around the 238 region. Now, it's telling us then that if we're using a Vegas line of 249, the score will most likely be under that. But then what I told it was, I told it, do not use the averages using the simulated values for the players. If you don't have some of them, just calculate the same code for those players. Because I think what it did was, with some of these players, if it didn't have those totals, it just added the averages. So I went back and I told it, let's get a full simulation. So now we made it even more accurate over here and we got these values. Now it's summing up these values for each player. It's put it into a table format, and now we're getting a total projected points for the Pacers at 114.35 and the Celtics at 123.95. So this is a more realistic, and this is our final data, which we're going to use for the pick in this video, and I'm about to show you guys the final pick. But yeah, total projected score at 123.95 for the Celtics to win this game, 124 to 114. And a total projected score is given at 238 points. So the total projected score, including contribution from all players, is approximately at 238 points. And this total is slightly below the over-under line of 249 points. So the problem is, I told it then, if the Vegas line is at 222 points, what do you predict? Because we're not betting on a 249 line. We need to know what the consensus pick will be for the over-under on the Celtics Pacers game one at 222 points set on this score total. And so given the updated Vegas line of 222 points, it's telling us that the total projected score is 238. So our projection of 238 points is significantly higher than the Vegas total of 222 points. And now that is our final pick for this video, that we're going to take the over 222 points using ChatGPT, using Python, running 200 iterations and simulating it for both teams, summing those values up and getting us to 238 points, which is a total score much higher than 222 points. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please make some profits today. Let me know if you got any comments or suggestions. Thank you.